Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Thursday everybody. Let's begin today's video with the economy. And first up, we are getting a lot of signals from Beijing that regulators really do not want households repaying mortgages early. Obviously, early repayments affects bank profits specifically, and reduces consumption generally, as households allocate disposable income to buying down debt rather than spending. But the fact that there is a media campaign to prevent this is a curious development, and is perhaps a sign of how desperate policymakers are to squeeze more consumption out of households this year. Some commentators have also speculated that regulators could be concerned about a potential banking crisis. Several state-run financial outlets have run pieces over the last week or so advocating against paying mortgages back early. For example, Economic Daily, in an article last week, told readers, quote, "You will need to plan for everyday expenses as well as retirement and medical needs. It is not a great idea to jump on the bandwagon to pay back your mortgages ahead of time." End quote. Chinese financial media outlet Yicai writes today that banks are indeed concerned about early mortgage repayments hurting profits, quoting a loan manager at a bank in Guangdong province as expressing, quote, "Early mortgage repayments have hit more than 100 million yuan, $14.7 million in our bank since last month, with about a 50% increase in the number of people paying off mortgages ahead of schedule." End quote. The state-run Securities Daily reports yesterday that banks are seeing a surge in homeowners applying to pay their mortgages back early. Very tellingly, the outlet reports some banks have closed online portals where people can submit early repayment applications and extended the time the total approval process takes to several months. Chinese financial media outlet Caixin reports a similar practice. In an article published yesterday titled, "High interest rates on existing mortgages cause a tide of early repayment of loans. Banks raising the threshold of repayment sparks controversy," the outlet writes that at present customers need to apply for loan repayment in offline outlets, and they need to wait several months to process the application. The outlet explains why so many households are seeking early repayment. Quote, "Recently, in addition to residents' increased uncertainty about the future economy and their income, the main reason is the decline in financial management returns and the large spread between some existing mortgages and new loans." End quote. Next up for the economy, Beijing is quickening the pace for opening up its domestic stock market by giving approval to 4 wholly foreign-owned fund managers this year to date, compared with just 1 for all of 2022. Global firms are seeking to pour into China's mutual fund and securities sectors, putting their money on growth in 2023 after 3 years of economic pain due to zero COVID and the housing crisis. Bloomberg writes that last week Morgan Stanley gained full control of its fund management joint venture in China after the China Securities Regulatory Commission gave approval for the US bank to boost its stake in the Shenzhen-based Morgan Stanley Huaxin Fund Management Co. to 100%. JP Morgan Chase & Co., the outlet reports, also recently gained regulatory approval for full control of its fund joint venture in China. Continuing with our economic and financial developments, China's largest restaurant operator, Yum China, YUM China, which operates the highly popular KFC and Pizza Hut in mainland China, has reported a profit collapse of nearly 90% in Q4 of 2022, and yet another sign of just how devastating zero COVID had become for the economy by the end of last year. Yesterday, Wednesday, Yum China reported that in Q4, net profit during the period plunged 89% to $53 million, and for the whole of 2022, total revenue was down 3% year-on-year to $9.87 billion, with net profit down 55% to $442 million year-on-year. The company told its investors that COVID outbreaks and zero COVID was the main cause for the poor performance. In late November, the number of temporarily closed or disrupted stores peaked at over 4,300. Caixin analysts writing on this theme today point out that, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, China's catering industry as a whole recorded a revenue decline of more than 10% in the fourth quarter of last year. Yum is very optimistic, however, for this year, as the country has reopened and fully abandoned its zero COVID restrictions, though of course, as we have discussed in previous videos, the housing crisis and systemic economic reform challenges remain. Despite this, however, as we say, Yum remains optimistic and plans on opening over 1,000 new stores this year. Next up, US-China relations. Hey guys, as always, if you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to hit that like button. A lot of you will see that we are 100 subscribers away from hitting that 40,000 subscriber mark. It would be amazing to reach that this week. So if you do watch these episodes and you are not subscribed, maybe consider subscribing. And if you think you should be subscribed, some people have these last few months been unsubscribed by YouTube. It is worth checking this. And of course, anyone who can go that extra mile and keep China Update sustainable, it is you guys, subscribers, the community here with China Update that I rely on to keep the channel sustainable financially. Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. Next up, yesterday we discussed General Secretary Xi Jinping's speech on so-called Chinese-style modernization. We also looked at the ongoing balloon saga. Today we need to discuss US President Joe Biden's State of the Union speech in Washington, which prominently featured the People's Republic of China. The speech not only tells us a lot about the White House's policy outlook on China, but also sentiment in the House. One of the best pieces I've seen discussing this theme comes from the Here It Comes newsletter by Stanford's Cyber Policy Center scholar Graham Webster. Webster provides a summary of, quote, 4 arguments or pitches President Biden advocated in the State of the Union yesterday, implicitly or explicitly, about China, end quote. Let's walk through these 4 arguments using Webster's language. Argument 1. Reliance on China isn't natural, hurts pocketbooks and costs jobs. Independence from China creates jobs in the heartland, especially in high tech. All Americans have a claim to technological leadership. He then quotes Biden, quote, these chips were invented in America. Let's get that straight. They were invented in America, and we used to make 40% of the world's chips, end quote. Argument 2. Competition with China means spending on education, which means opportunity for everyone. He once again quotes Biden, quote, any nation that out-educates us is going to out-compete us. Folks, we all know 12 years of education is not enough to win the economic competition of the 21st century, end quote. Argument 3. Biden has turned the tide on China's relative rise and America's relative decline. Tech is key for investment, allied alignment, and military modernization to compete with China. He quotes Biden, quote, before I came to office, the story was about how the People's Republic of China was increasing its power and America was failing in the world. I will make no apologies that we are investing to make America stronger, investing in American innovation, in industries that will define the future, that China intends to be dominating, end quote. And argument 4. Democracy is strengthening versus autocracy, and the Biden administration is leading the shift. Xi, meanwhile, is under pressure. Once again, Biden is quoted as expressing, quote, autocracy has grown weaker, not stronger. Name me a world leader who would change places with Xi Jinping. Name me one. Name me one. America is rallying the world to meet those challenges, from climate to global health, to food insecurity, to terrorism, to territorial aggression, end quote. In response to the State of the Union address, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson expressed today that, quote, China will neither shy away nor be fearful of competition, but is opposed to using competition to define the entire China-US relations, smearing a certain country under the pretext of competition and restraining the legitimate development rights of other countries, even at the expense of global industrial and supply chains, end quote. Meanwhile, while we are on China-US relations and Congress specifically, we should note that US media is now reporting that House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is not expected to make a trip to Taiwan until later this year or even next year. If this is the case, it may give the State Department and Beijing's Foreign Ministry some breathing space to retry establishing guardrails in the bilateral relationship over the next few months, once, of course, the fallout from this balloon incident dies down. May being the operative word. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I will see you all tomorrow.